If you're trying to eat more veggies, you are likely sick of side salads and steamed broccoli. The trick to eating more veggies is to make sure they taste delicious. So today I'm sharing with you 5 vegetable side dishes that are not only tasty, but simple to prepare. I'm going to start with an asparagus dish. Now this is really simple. We're just going to lightly cook the asparagus. So I'm filling a pan with water, bringing it up to a boil. But what really makes this delicious is this honey mustard dressing that I'm going to put over top of it. I'm starting with about a tablespoon of honey, and then I'm just going to take a wedge off my lemon and squeeze that in. It's probably about 1 to 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. And I'll combine those two together until the honey and the lemon juice sort of combine and the honey is a little more easy to work with, not so thick. And of course, try to, keep any lemon seeds out of there. So I'm stirring it together, letting those combine. And then I'll add a pinch of salt. And then I have this Dijon mustard. I'm going to add about a tablespoon. If you want it a little more mustardy, go ahead and add that. If you only have yellow mustard, that would work in a pinch too. And what would also be really delicious is maybe a combination of Dijon mustard and a whole grain mustard. But alas, I had no whole grain mustard. I'm combining this together, and then the last thing I'm going to add is actually just a little amount of mayo. So it's probably about a teaspoon. For one, this just adds a little more creaminess to it, and it also helps with the emulsification, so it keeps it together. So the mustard helps as well, but the mayo even more so keeps it in solution so it doesn't separate. And then I'm just going to set that aside while I cook the asparagus. I forgot to actually record prepping the asparagus and cooking it. I just snapped off the hard woody stems and then popped the asparagus into the hot water. I'm only cooking it for maybe 2 minutes. And then I'm pulling it out and putting it into an ice water bath to stop the cooking. This way it's soft and tender, but yet still crisp at the same time. Once it's cooled, I'm transferring them to a towel just to let the water drain. I'll dab the water off so they're nice and dry. And then I just take a handful, put them on my plate along with whatever I'm serving it with, drizzle a little bit of the dressing over top, and it elevates this from just being, okay, it's some asparagus, to something delicious, and it actually feels a little fancy. The nice thing about this dressing, if you have extra, serve it over something else. Put it on a salad, put it on some green beans, come up with something even over top of fish. It's just very, very yummy. Don't let it go to waste. And then next, I want to make a caprese side salad. I'm making like a basil vinaigrette. If I had fresh basil, I would have just probably finely diced a bunch of fresh basil, but I didn't have any. So I bought this basil in a tube. It's not the best, but it's not bad either. I'm just adding a couple tablespoons of that to a tablespoon or so of white balsamic vinegar, adding a little salt and pepper, and it's yummy. And then pick whatever salad greens you want. I happen to have this, I think it's Bib lettuce, which is a nice tender green. It is very delicious, but it doesn't matter. Use what's on sale, use what you already have in your kitchen. Any green will do. And then I'm just adding it to my dressing, tossing it around a little bit to get that nice basil goodness all over the lettuce. And then I'm going to set that aside and just let it sit and marinate for a moment while I prep the tomato and the cheese. I'm just going to clean up my mess, grab some salad plates, divide my salad greens between the two plates. Again, I'm only feeding 2 of us. And at the last minute, I decided I really like a little bit of salt on my tomatoes, especially with a caprese, because the mozzarella is sort of bland, not very salty. So I spread out my tomatoes and just add just the tiniest little sprinkle of salt. You could also add a little pepper. It does just make them taste a little more delicious. And then here you can see how I'm alternating them. Tomato, cheese, tomato, cheese. And to finish this off, I'm going to drizzle over top a balsamic glaze. Now, normally I would just take a little bit of balsamic vinegar, put it in a saucepan and cook it down. But somebody brought this to my house for dinner or to add to a dish that they had brought, and they left it behind. And so therefore I'm going to use it. But really, I mean, while it's good, I really wouldn't go out and purchase this. I would just reduce some balsamic myself. But if you have it, you might as well use it. It's yummy. And then next, we're moving into just a simple cucumber and dill salad. So I'm starting with some white vinegar in my bowl, adding a pinch of salt, and then I added a little scoop of Miracle Whip. I just like something that is creamy, and for this I like the flavor of Miracle Whip here better than mayo. I know there's always an argument about which is better. I think neither is better. I think they are 2 different products. There are some things you can only use mayo and some things taste better with Miracle Whip. But if you don't want either of those, you could also use a little dollop of sour cream or some plain yogurt just to add a little creaminess to this. So it's essentially like a creamy vinaigrette. And then I have a little handful of dill here. I'm removing sort of the bigger stems, leaving just the delicate little fronds, and then chopping that up, adding it to my vinaigrette so I have a nice vinegary, creamy, dill flavored yumminess to coat my cucumbers. See, that looks pretty yummy, right? And now to move on to the cucumber, you don't have to trim off any of the green if you don't want to, any of the peel, but this one felt a little ragged, like it had been beat up a bit. So I decided to just get the bulk of it off. And then I'm just slicing my cucumber up into pieces. You can do it on a bias. You can keep them very round. You can take those rounds and cut them in half or even in quarters if you choose. I left mine whole. I chopped up, this was probably, I don't know, I think I had about 3/4 of a cucumber here. Again, this also scales up or down very easy. If you want to make a lot, just mix up a little more dressing, slice up a couple different cucumbers, and you can feed a crowd. Again, I'm only feeding 2, so I didn't make nearly as much as I could have. And actually, I even had plenty of dressing. I could have added probably another good half a cucumber and had plenty of dressing to coat it. And then I like to let this sit for 15-20 minutes at least. So if I was making this for dinner, I would probably make this first and then prep whatever else I was having. But, you know, you do you. Onto roasted cauliflower. This is sort of what I call like a garlic oil roasted cauliflower. I have this big, huge clove of garlic, so I'm mincing it into a little bowl, and then I'm going to add in olive oil, a little salt and pepper, and just stir it around and let that sit for a few minutes. So I'm allowing that garlic flavor to really infuse into the oil. And while that is sitting there becoming delicious, I will begin to break down my cauliflower. Now you can leave the florets as large or as small as you want. It's really up to you. Obviously, if you make them smaller, these will roast up a little faster. If you leave them bigger, obviously it will take a little longer. So, whatever you choose. And again, another one that scales up really easy. Make a little more oil. You can do a ton of cauliflower. I set my oven to about 400 degrees. If you make it a little hotter, they'll roast a little faster, but I like it around 400. Sometimes I find if I put the oven a little warmer than that, sometimes they brown a little faster than I'm ready for, and not that I mind it because brown food does taste good. And as far as cooking time, again, it really depends on how big your florets are. I believe these ones cooked in about half an hour and they had a nice bit of brown on them. If I'd went a little bit longer, they would have been delicious. If I'd cut it a little short, it would have been delicious. Now I'm scooping out the oil here to use just to coat my cauliflower. I'm trying to get mostly oil. I'm getting a little bit of garlic, but not a lot of garlic. And the reason I'm doing that is because the garlic is likely to burn when you put this in the oven at such a high temperature. The minced garlic, I don't know. If you've ever had burnt garlic, it's not really good. So I'm trying to keep most of it in the oil, and then I'm actually going to reuse this oil. I'm going to reuse the garlic. I'm going to add some more oil in my next dish. So I will set this aside. It won't go to waste. It almost went to waste. So I'm just tossing it around to get a light coat of oil. I'm putting it in a baking sheet with some parchment paper that I've also sprayed with oil. And then I'm arranging it, trying to put the cut side or any of the flat sides down. That just helps them brown up even better. So when the tops just begin to get a little bit of brown, that underside will actually be nice and browned and caramelized and delicious. So again, 400 degrees, about a half an hour, give or take. And then when it's ready, I'm just going to pop it out of the oven and put it on a little serving dish, and it's yummy. If you wanted to add a little green, you could top it with maybe some chopped chives or a little parsley, but you don't even have to do that. It is good just as it is. If you're enjoying this video, please click the like button. Doing so lets YouTube know that people are interested in content like mine. And lastly, I'm grilling up some zucchini and red bell pepper that I will then chop and serve again as another veggie side dish. The weather is cold outside, so I'm using my grill pan, putting a little oil on it, letting that preheat. I have, again, that oil and garlic left over from the cauliflower that I made. I'm adding a little Italian seasoning to this just to change up the flavor, adding more oil. And again, I will set this aside and let that Italian seasoning and the salt and the garlic infuse into the oil and make it all nice and tasty and yummy. And while the oil sits, I will prep the veggies. So to make life on the grill easier, I am cutting my zucchini into long steaks. So these are little zucchini, so I'm cutting them into 4 slices each. If they were bigger, you might be able to get, more slices. You want them probably about 1/4 of an inch thick. If you go thicker, you'll just have to cook them a little bit longer. It's not the end of the world. Just be careful, watch your fingers. So I sliced up the zucchini, and then I'm just going to do the bell pepper as well. If I had a whole bell pepper, I would have used a whole bell pepper. But this is what was in my fridge, so this is what I'm using. I cut out some of that little white pith. Is it pith? I don't know what it actually is. It's not pith. And now I'm just adding this oil again, just like I did with the cauliflower, trying to scoop out, getting a little bit of the garlic, but trying not to get a lot because I don't want it to burn on the grill. I just want to get enough oil that I coat the veggies so we get the flavor of the oil, and also it will keep it from sticking to the grill. You could toss this around with some tongs, but I find it's easier to just do it with your hands. Get it on the grill, and again, cooking time will depend on how thick you cut your veggies, how hot your grill pan is. The important thing is to have it hot enough so that you get some really nice grill marks on there, and that the veggies have some time to soften. So I cook them on one side. Once I start to see grill marks, I flip them all over, cook them for a little bit on the second side. And then once I feel like they're done, I'll just pull them off and let them sit and cool for a few minutes. Now, you could just serve them whole like this. They would make a perfectly good side dish just to put slices of zucchini on the plate. But I decided to chop mine up a little bit, add some parsley and some more of that balsamic glaze again because I have it in my fridge. However, I'm also fairly impatient, so while I had the goal of sitting it here and letting it cool, I had to start pulling it out and cutting it up while it's like hot. So burning my fingers just a little bit and then trying to cut them without actually touching them. You can see I'm cutting them on the diagonal, mostly just because I thought that would look pretty. And then I'm putting it into a small serving bowl, and then I'll add the peppers, I'll add the rest of the zucchini. You can see my parsley sitting here on the edge of my cutting board, then I'll add that. If you didn't have parsley, you could omit it altogether or use a different herb. I flavored this oil with some Italian seasoning, so adding some basil or even thyme or rosemary would all be good options here. If you haven't already, please click the subscribe button. That way you'll never miss a future video. Here you can see I'm drizzling some more of that balsamic glaze. There is nice and delicious. I hope you will give one of these side dishes a try, maybe all 5. They're quick, they're easy, and they are tasty. Thanks so much for joining me. Have a great day.